Hi guys, welcome to the video 3 on image sequence. So in the previous two videos we just saw that we could animate an image sequence inside the draw function. Then we animated it based on click, so every time we clicked it moved the frame forward, and now in this video we're going to animate it based on the mouse position. So the end result that we want is I would like that if the mouse is on the left hand side of the canvas, I want it to be on frame 1. And if the mouse is on the right hand side of the canvas, I want it to be on the final frame. Yeah. If it's in the middle of the canvas, I want it to be somewhere in the middle. Okay. So the way that we're going to do that here, the first thing we're going to do here is I'm just going to this move frame function that we had for our previous video. We don't need that anymore. I'm just going to get rid of that, and I'm just going to save that, and so this is the only stuff that's running here. We're just drawing the image with the image index, which we've set at 0. So there we go, and when we click nothing happens. Okay, so we're back to square one here. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to control this image index based on the mouse position. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to use this little bit of code here. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that. We're just going to, instead of drawing the image, we're just going to print it out. Print, so that we can just start to examine what this is doing. Okay, so the image index function, the image index thing that we've written here, so where we're going to set this image index, we're going to use this thing called map. And map in P5 is a function that, if we can find it, that maps a value from one range into another range. Okay, so there's the reference on it. I might just quickly explain what I mean by map. Let's put an artboard in here. This happens quite a lot when we're doing sort of geometry and interaction design, is that we have a range, say our range is 0 to, why is my font so small? Okay, we have a range and it's 0 to 100. Yeah. So we're just going to draw a little line here. And then we've got a point on the range, and the point on the range here is, let's make it easy, let's say it's 50. But we want to find out what the equivalent number here is in a different range. So the different range might be 0 to 200. Yeah. So we want to find out this number. Okay. So we're trying to map this number on this range to this number on this range. Okay. Now we can see that that number is likely to be 100. Yeah, it's halfway through the range. That's fine. But what we want it to be able to work for all sorts. When it starts to get to sort of more complex ranges, like maybe 130 to 547, then it starts to get more difficult. And the point is here, which is sort of 25. It starts to get more difficult to find out what this point is. Yeah. Okay. So that's what the map function does. The map function takes your value here, 25, and your first range, min, and your first range, max, and then your second range, min, and your second range, max. So you can see here that what we're trying to get in our code is we want the mouse X position on the range of 0 to 600. Now 0 to 600 is our canvas width, yeah? So our mouse X position, so at any point, our mouse X position in the range 0 to 600, and we want to map it to our image arrays, yeah? So we want to map that mouse X position in relation to the range 0 to 600 to a number between 0 and 7. Yeah, so we want it to be, so just say mouse X is bang in the middle here. Let's use that as an example to help us think about it. And the range is 0 to 7. Let's just make this a bit shorter. We want that X to be 3.5, yeah? Or what we actually want, because we're going to try and use it as a index, is we want it to be either 3 or 4. Okay, so we want it to be whatever we deem to be the middle frame, yeah? So that's how we're going to use this function. So here we have written that function here. So the mouse X position, our first range 0 to 600, and our second range 0 to 7. Yeah. Again, if you'd seen in the previous video, instead of writing 7, we're going to use images.length -1, so that if we need to, we can put another image in here without it stuffing up our functions. Okay, so let's see what we get here. So every time the draw function runs, we're going to print out the image index. Yeah. Let's see what happens here. So you can see that we've got some numbers appearing down here. Yeah, and you can see that when our mouse is over here, it's sort of 0. Yeah, and as we move our mouse along to the middle, we're on about 3.5. Yeah, and then we move over here, we're on 7. Now, if we tried to use that as our image index, we'd get a lot of errors. In fact, let's just do that and show the errors. Yeah? So let's just print out, let's just draw our image using the image index number that we've got out of here. So you can see that it started at 0, we saw a flash of that frame, and now we've got errors. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that this image index is a round number. So the way that we're going to do that is use a JavaScript function called toFixed and 0. toFixed is something that means that you can set a number like 4 point blah, 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 and if you use toFixed, it's going to toFixed to the power with a it's how many decimals you want to show. So toFixed and 0 will equal in this case 5, yeah, because it's rounded up. If you did toFixed 2, you would get 4.59. Yeah. So it just sets the number and how many decimals you want in the number. Now we don't want any decimals, we want it to be rounded to a whole number so that we can use it in our image index. So we can use it in our images array. So here we go. We're still getting errors. Let's refresh that. Oh, it's working. Okay. So you can see that as we move our mouse across, we're going through the image index. If we're in the middle, it's in the middle here. If it's at the end, we're at the last frame. Now the reason we've got errors is because when we went outside, you can see the number that it tried to go with, the image index was 8, and there's not that many images in our sequence. So what we need to do is, that is because our draw function picks up the mouse X even if it's inside or outside the canvas. So our mouse X was something higher than 600, which meant that our image index ended up being 8. Yeah. So our mouse was outside of, just to reiterate here, if our mouse is outside, our image index is going to be 8 there. It might be minus if we get in this little bit here, if it's under 0. So what we want to do is we want to eliminate that. And the way that we can do that is, remember in the first video we set the create canvas as a variable? Well, here we're going to use that. So we've set that as a variable, which means that we can assign a mouse moved listener directly to the canvas. So this function that we write in here, whatever we're going to write, that function will run only when mouse moves on the canvas. Yeah. So we're attaching a listener for activity on the canvas only. The listener is mouse moved, so every time the mouse moves, but it's only going to run if it's on canvas. Yeah. And the function that we're going to run is mouse moves frame. That's a custom function that we're going to write, which I have prepared earlier. And here's our function. And this does exactly the same as this thing here, but it just does it inside its own function. So we can run it only when something happens, that we only when the mouse moves on the canvas, rather than every time the draw function runs. So let's save that, and let's see what happens. Hey, and we've got no errors. It just stays at 7 because the mouse isn't moving. The function's not running when we're outside the canvas, and now it's running when we're inside the canvas. And if we're outside the canvas, oh, we're still getting an error there. Okay, I'm not sure what that error is. Let's have a little look. Maybe it's because it was 0. Let's try this, max. So that's fixed it. So I think the error was something to do with, and I'm not quite sure why this would be, something to do with the mouse X being 0. So it actually got called on 0, and probably something to do with how we're doing our toFixed function here. Anyway, what we've done is we've solved it by saying let's get the maximum number 0 or whatever comes out of this function, out of this map function method here. Yeah, so that means it'll just never go under 0, is what we're saying. Just don't ever let image index go under 0. I might investigate that and put a little note in the comments here. But we've achieved what we needed to achieve. So that's quite an in-depth thing, but it's quite a nice concept, because I think it's something you guys could use to do some interesting things, animating things based on mouse position or based on something else. You know, you could do it based on dragging something to somewhere. You know, so you can find out a thing that you want to animate it based on, and you can sort of adapt this function here to do that. Okay, I'm going to leave it there because I'm about to run out of power. All right, and I'll see you in class.